Three Guys Analyze is sponsored by KMC Artistry. Check the description to schedule your hair appointment today. Three Guys Analyze is also sponsored by Shortcut Lawn Care. Save time, save money with Shortcut. Read the description to set up your free estimate today.
Hello, and welcome back to Three Guys Analyze. This is episode number 4. We've taken a couple weeks off. Tony, why have you been gone for so long?
I think it was you and your scheduling conflicts, if I remember correctly.
Me? That can't be it. Ricky, it's definitely your fault, right?
That's probably right.
No, we'll just leave it on Ricky. He's easy to take the blame. He's so far away. Well, since we're back, we got a lot of things to talk about. Most notably, LeBron. He is no longer in Cleveland. He has left us. He has departed us. Tony cried many tears. I probably threw something off the balcony. Ricky, you probably just gave a firm, head shake or something. You have little emotion.
So in our A block today, we'll be talking LeBron and all things NBA free agency.
So, Tony, with LeBron going and signing with the Lakers for a 4-year deal, 4th year as an opt-in, are the Lakers title contenders?
No. How could you possibly say that? Especially with the signings that they created with JaVale McGee, Rajon Rondo, and Lance Stevenson. Are these the cerebral players he was talking about that he needed to sign with and he needed to play with? I mean, he's almost 34 years old. A complete rebuild in LA, there's more to it. There's more to this.
All right, Rick, so LeBron signs with the Lakers. We're not shocked by that. Honestly, I wish he would have stayed, but we all kind of knew he was going to leave. And the Lakers had the money. He has 2 homes in LA. We kind of knew he was going there. Do you agree with Tony? Do you think they won't be contenders next year?
I don't think they'll be contenders. I think they'll make the playoffs just because LeBron's on the team. Here's the roster and give you what I think about these players playing alongside LeBron. So you got Lonzo Ball, who may or may not have an injured knee. I don't know, or his dad's making that up so he doesn't get traded. But he can't shoot. Kyle Kuzma is inconsistent at best. Brandon Ingram, I like Brandon Ingram. He shot 39% last year from 3, so I think he can fit alongside LeBron pretty well. But then you got Josh Hart, which I don't even know what he can do on the court. Luol Deng is 40 years old and is making way too much money. And he can't shoot either. They've got JaVale McGee now, like Tony said, they signed him. He's just an absolute train wreck on the floor. Rajon Rondo can't shoot anything outside of about 10 feet. And Lance Stevenson is hot or cold as well. So we've all watched LeBron pretty much for his entire 15-year career. And the one thing that he needs to be successful and a LeBron James-led team needs to be successful is great shooters around him to space the floor. Otherwise, your team's ceiling probably around 50 wins if they're lucky, but they'll probably be a 6 or 7 seed in the West.
Yeah, I mean, we both can attest, all 3 of us can attest that we've watched enough Cavs games where they take 1 or 2 shooters off the court. I mean, it's not the same Cavs team, right? We saw Kevin Love go from a ball-dominant forward in Minnesota to being a stretch 4 where 80% of his shots are coming from beyond the 3-point line. So adding Rajon Rondo, who I guess shot about 36% in the last couple of seasons, isn't terrible. Lance Stevenson is erratic at best. And KCP was on the team last year. I mean, maybe he's a 6th man, but you're right. Lonzo Ball, not a great spot-up shooter. And, I mean, Luol Deng is a waste of space at this point. I mean, he's just writing out his contract. So, Tony, does it make any sense to you what the Lakers are doing with their roster?
It does, but it doesn't. Because what it seems like is the Lakers have decided they're going to punt on this year in hopes of moving on to the free agent class of 2019, which is star-studded already as it is with you got Klay Thompson, Kyrie's on the block, Jimmy Butler, Kawhi. Then you don't have to give up anything at that point. I mean, there's going to be superstars for the taking if they've decided they're going to punt. However, if they're looking to be a contender now, I can't see it. I mean, I like Ricky was saying, I think it's more of a fringe idea and I'm not sure where LeBron's thinking unless it's about LeBron making his and not worrying about anything else.
Tony, one more thing. Do you think LeBron had any input on the guys they were signing?
I've heard that Magic's been in touch with him, but all these decisions have been his. And if it is his decision, I'm interested to know, in this stage of his career, where is LeBron going to go with his evolution? Because we know LeBron has evolved as a player into the great player that he is, even though he shows no loyalty to his hometown. However, it's so questionable this year on what they're trying to do.
All right, Rick. So Tony kind of said that he thinks the Lakers are punting this season. Do you think that's wise? You have LeBron in his prime, maybe on his way out of his prime. Is it wise for the Lakers to punt next season and just wait till 2019?
I don't think it's wise, given that LeBron is coming towards the later stages of his career, and obviously you don't want to waste a season at all. I think that it's probably necessary just because the gap between the Warriors and the rest of the league is so wide that you could trade for Kawhi possibly this season, but you could possibly also have to go up Brandon Ingram because it sounds like that's what the Spurs want. Brandon Ingram, by a lot of people that know a lot about basketball, think he has a ceiling of being Kevin Durant 2.0. So I would never give that up for, what's a team with Kawhi and LeBron? Okay, you might win 55 games. Maybe you get a 4 or 3 seed. You're still probably going to get beat by Houston and definitely going to get beat by the Warriors. So I think they're doing the smart move, signing a lot of one-year deals that they can get off the books next year in the free agent market and keep, the team competitive, but not necessarily constrain themselves into what they have this season. I also think it's like an interesting point to know if these players actually even want to play with LeBron. I mean, it sounds like Kawhi doesn't really want to come to LA now, or at least he's kind of saying, well, he might play for the Clippers and not necessarily the Lakers. And then he doesn't really want to be in the Clippers because he doesn't want to be under LeBron's shadow. So, Paul George, obviously we thought was a slam dunk to go to LA. He stayed in Oklahoma City. So it's kind of, one of those things that maybe the Lakers, maybe the chatter on the insider chatter, not necessarily what the media is getting, is like Kawhi is like, hey, don't trade me to LA because I don't want to play with LeBron and I'll leave if you do. And the Lakers are like, okay, let's just develop our young talent that we have and try to put pieces around LeBron that way. I don't know. It could be a possible explanation. But it certainly seems like, I do agree LeBron's a hard player to play with just watching his style. So it certainly seems like a lot of these younger players are not necessarily lining up to younger superstars, I'll say, is not necessarily lining up to play with him.
Right. When I saw LeBron James sign to the Lakers, like I said, it wasn't a shock, but I think everyone kind of expected the second shoe to drop, right? Who are they trading for? Were they getting Kawhi? What shooters are they putting around LeBron? I mean, when they signed JaVale McGee, and Lance Stevenson, wasn't like 4 years ago where Lance Stevenson was blowing in LeBron's ear when he was at Miami? Are they assembling a team of enemies of LeBron? Rajon Rondo, they went at it when he was with the Celtics and he was with the Heat. So it's all very strange what they're doing. Obviously, the one-year deals tells you, I think they are playing for 2019. Can they get someone else? They need to. And I'll be real honest. I love LeBron. He's my favorite player. He's the best player I've ever seen play. But if they had a really terrible season next year, I would not be upset about it. It's good. What's the point of making the playoffs for them, honestly? In my mind, what good is having all these veteran players on the team? Like, how does that make Kyle Kuzma better? How does that make Brandon Ingram better? Like Rajon Rondo stealing points from Lonzo or stealing minutes from Lonzo Ball. Is that helping Lonzo spot up shoot better? I don't know. But this year is definitely not doing anything. They're not going to be productive for them. The Cavs roster had a lot of bad players on it, but at least they fit around LeBron a little bit better. Tony, so Lakers making the playoffs, in or out?
Well, when you look at it, you got your top tier of Warriors, Rockets. They're 1-2. But after that, there's just so many, I guess, wannabe contenders in the Western Conference. Of you have the Trailblazers, the Thunder, the Lakers, the Pelicans, Spurs, the Nuggets, the Jazz. You could even throw the T-Wolves in there, the Mavericks, and even the Clippers. You have all these teams battling for the 3 through 8 seeds in the West. It could make for very, very interesting basketball, to say the least.
All right, Rick. So Lakers playoffs hopes, in or out?
I think they're in, but as Tony said, it's going to be very – I wouldn't be shocked if they don't make the playoffs. I mean, last year the Nuggets missed the playoffs, and they were finished, 2 games behind Utah, who was the 3rd seed. I mean, it's just, it's the West is so competitive and so balanced at this point, and every team's getting better too, which is, kind of the interesting thing, right? So Denver's gotten better this offseason. You've got the Jazz, got another year of Donovan Mitchell. He's getting better. Oklahoma City brought back their nucleus, their core. The Timberwolves, Jimmy Butler was injured part of last year. He should come back healthy. So I think it would be a very I think they'll make the playoffs because I would never bet against LeBron, especially after watching him wade in the playoffs last year with that really terrible Cavs team. But, I wouldn't put him anything higher than a 6th seed.
So obviously, even if the Lakers aren't good, at least they have LeBron for 2 more years. Something that the Cavs the last couple of seasons could not say about themselves with those 1-1s. So speaking of the Cavs, right, they haven't made any moves, right? Jeff Green has left. He's signed elsewhere. All right, we've lost a couple players on free agency. So we talk about what are the Cavs' expectations, and I'll say rational expectations for next season. Tony, what do you think of the Cavs' 2019 season?
When I look at our 2019 season, I look at it as where do we want to go? Do we want to just go ahead and tank and start the rebuild now by tearing down, by giving pieces up like your Kyle Korvers, your K Love, JR, maybe somebody taking the Albatross contracts that we've gone over and over again on this podcast. When you look at it, you have your top 10 pick by the Hawks, top 10 protected pick by the Hawks. Sorry. And when you look at it, it would be nice to tank to keep your pick. However, where the East is stacked up now, I mean, you could maybe make a case to become your Miami Heat, where you're at least going to get the 45 wins and kind of play in that mediocrity of being a 4 through 6 seed in the East. I mean, it's just where do the Cavs want to go from here? Do they just want to be the middle class of the Eastern Conference and you're at least making the playoffs every year? Or do you want to just full on rebuild in hopes that maybe you get it up to where you had it with LeBron, and maybe in hopes of finding that next LeBron, whether it be being your draft picks from tanking for so much? And it just kind of depends on, what does Dan Gilbert want to do? Is he tired of spending the money or not? I mean, he's going to have to live with 1 or 2 more years in the luxury tax. And then after that, the contracts get pretty wide open where you could build a team around Rodney Hood, Jordan Clarkson, Colin Sexton, Chetty Osman. You can do that. Maybe even having Kevin Love as an all-star. But I guess it depends on how much they want that top 10 protected pick.
All right, there's a lot of ways the team could go. Rick, what are your rational expectations for the Cavs next season?
I expect them to finish with the 11th pick in the draft, lose it to Atlanta, and that's typical Cleveland. I don't know. I guess it depends on how good Colin Sexton can come in and be. I mean, I'm not super high on the guy, but maybe he'll come in and have a rookie season like Donovan Mitchell. That's like the biggest wild card in my mind, because if you take the Jazz, take Donovan Mitchell off of that team, they're a good team, but are they the 3 seed? Are they getting to the second round? Are they winning a game against Houston? Probably not. So if Colin Sexton can come in and kind of have a breakout year as rookie season, because the Cavs team is not bad for the context of the East, right? The East is I can never remember when I've been watching the NBA now for probably 15 years, and I can never remember having a season where the balance of powers between the East and the West has just been so bad, and having a conference that just has no talent. So Kevin Love will make the All-Star team next year for the East. There's no question in my mind. So we have an All-Star, which is more than a lot of teams can say. Colin Sexton, Rodney Hood, maybe he can go back now that he showed some flashes late in the playoffs. He'll get his confidence back over the summer. It won't be any pressure on these guys now. That's the other thing, too. This is a young team. I think a young team playing with a lot of pressure in those playoffs affected them a little bit. And now you're basically going to have zero pressure. The Cavs might have 2 nationally televised games the entire year, and they'll probably be when they play the Lakers, right? So you're going to have no pressure. Rodney Hood can kind of get back into a rhythm. Jordan Clarkson won't feel like he'll be pulled if he misses 2 shots in a row. He can kind of feel his game out a little bit. And I'm interested to see what they can do. But, yes, my prediction, being a lifetime Browns and Cavs and Indians fan, is for them to finish with the 11th pick. And then this starts the decade of sadness here for the Cleveland Cavaliers.
I mean, I wouldn't disagree with you, Rick. I mean, Cleveland is destined for the worst. That just seems how it is. But I'm looking at this roster, and it's not bad. I mean, they're in the East. If they're in the West, they might be the worst team, and they'd be battling Sacramento for the worst team in the West. But I think there are ways for this team to be average. I think if Kevin Love averages 25 and 10, I think if they re-sign Rodney Hood, I think if they let Colin Sexton play and be the young bull that he is, I think there's an opportunity for this team to be okay. And I think it's really about how well Chetty Osman develops. It's how well Colin Sexton develops as a rookie. Hopefully he doesn't pick up any bad habits, right? I think there's potential. I think the key is, all right, who's been the leader the last 4 years? It's been LeBron. Who was the leader before that? It was Kyrie, right? Is there a power vacuum? Is J.R. Smith going to be able to be controlled on the team? Is Tristan Thompson going to continue to have head case moments that he had during the playoffs, right? I mean, Kevin Love has to step up and be a leader. I mean, Kyle Korver could be that guy, but we don't know him to be any more than the soft-spoken swingman. So I think it's on the shoulders purely of Kevin Love. If they keep him, right, he's got to be the guy. They've got to run the offense through him. They got to let Sexton, drive and kick and slash. But I think there's potential. But if they choose to blow it up, blow it up. I mean, trade Kevin. Don't re-sign Rod Hood. Be bad. Get the pick back. And, I mean, they don't have any assets. They have 2 assets, Chetty Osman and Colin Sexton. I mean, I guess Larry Nance could be an asset, I guess. But no one wants Jordan Clarkson. That's obvious. I mean, does anyone want Rodney Hood after last season? I mean, who knows? So I guess we'll just have to play it by ear and see what happens, right? We can always look to Summer League to see how that goes. All right, so speaking of the Cavs, right, we're on the subject. LeBron left. We all know that when LeBron wasn't there, the team wasn't the same. The city wasn't the same. So Darren Rovell put out a report after LeBron decided to leave that said the franchise value of the Cavaliers would drop by nearly $300 million. Ricky, do you think Dan Gilbert would sell the Cavs now?
It's a possibility. I know Dan Gilbert's a Detroit guy. I know that he was a part of this group of billionaires that was initiating this movement to revitalize Detroit as a city, and especially the downtown area, and buying up a lot of abandoned housing and kind of rejuvenating that city. So I don't know what that looks like. Obviously, I think he'll hang on to the Cavs to be in the NBA. The thing about owning an NBA franchise right now, it's kind of like owning a hot stock in the market, right? Because the NBA is just on this meteoric rise that it's on. And why would you sell, even if your franchise loses $300 million, you still get all that revenue sharing that the NBA gets from all the TV dollars that they have. So what incentive is there to sell your franchise at this moment? I mean, the NBA doesn't look to be getting less popular anytime soon. You've got the NFL with all the issues it's having with concussions and people not necessarily kind of getting tired of the violence. You've got baseball, which is essentially no competition. It's become a regional sport. So the NBA has this wide open market that they can capture, and I think they're doing really well with younger generation. So I think Dan Gilbert, the only way I see Dan Gilbert selling the Cavs, if he has an opportunity to buy the Pistons, right? Or another franchise maybe that he wants to dabble into. But I don't see any reason. I mean, I would just hold it. Even if you want nothing to do with the NBA anymore, hold on to it, hire someone to be your CEO of the team, and don't even worry about running it, but just keep that check coming. I mean, he's got a young kid. The kid, he likes to get him involved in draft night and things like that. So I think he does get a lot of value out of owning an NBA team. But no, if I was him, I wouldn't sell it. I don't see a reason.
Tony, if you were Danny Gilbert, would you sell Cavs?
No, and there was reports that just came out last week that Dan Gilbert said he can't wait for LeBron to leave so that he can get his team back. Dan Gilbert, I think he fashions himself as more of a Jerry Jones type where he wants to be hands-on. And he wants to say, this is my team, and I'm going to do it my way, my style. Which, if that's the case, then I don't understand why Ty Lue hasn't been fired yet. But that's besides the point. As far as the revenue is concerned, LeBron did pump a lot of money into that city 4 years ago when he came back because of the star power of LeBron. And now that there's not that star power in Cleveland anymore, that's where the economy of Cleveland, in essence, is going to take that hit, and where then the franchise becomes more of a loss. But as Ricky said, it'll still come up because of the fact of the NFL spiraling. Major League Baseball is becoming, like they said, regional. However, remember, Cleveland still does have a title contender in their city. We just forget about them. Go Indians.
Okay, so go Indians. Speaking of star power, Ricky, how long after LeBron retires does he A, get a statue in Cleveland, and B, is his number retired?
So they should start building the statue now, and they should probably retire his number the first home game of the year this year. LeBron James is, and this isn't even like up for debate, argument, like head and shoulders the best athlete, player, and I'll even say community member that Cleveland sports has ever had. And I know Jim Brown played for the Browns. I understand that, but they have never had a player of this magnitude, which will probably go down to be arguably the top, one or two, depending on what era you watch the game in, best player of all time, and brought the city their first championship in 52 years, played 11 years of his career there, was largely surrounded by a terrible team his first, 7 years that he was with there, and drugged them to the finals one year, stayed with them after his rookie contract for a little while. So I think, winning the championship kind of smooths over the past of him leaving for Miami, and the city of Cleveland should, and I think they do, have nothing but respect and love for LeBron. And that's going to be his home. He will live in LA, but he was always raised in Akron. He's been a Cleveland guy. You really couldn't have had a better story than what you got with LeBron. I mean, you could make a Hollywood movie, if you just ended it after 2016 finals when they won the championship finally, and he kind of brought them to glory. That could be a Hollywood movie, right? I mean, so many dominoes had to fall into place. You got this kid born in Akron, gets drafted number 1 overall by the team that's right up the road, leaves. You got to have that part in it. He leaves, and there's nothing better than to come back, comes back, brings them to glory. So, no, I think he gets the statue, and they should start planning for it right away.
But then why leave? Why leave? Why not just go down in history and finish your career in Cleveland? Why not finish what you start? No, you went to L.A. for yourself. When you've penned letters saying how it was bigger than basketball in Cleveland. You came back because you felt a calling bigger than basketball. I mean, it was so much easier to run your foundation playing in Cleveland and with doing that stuff in Akron because it's such a short drive. However, now you're across the country in LA working on your foundation in Akron. It doesn't make any sense to me. It doesn't.
So, Tony, you think Frankie Lindor is going to get a statue next to Jim Thome before LeBron gets one outside of Quicken, right?
I disagree on that because of the way you fans have betrayed his exit as nothing but, oh man, it's okay, LeBron. I understand you had to leave. I don't see that. I don't see that at all. I'm sorry. However, I mean, I still have respect for him. He deserves to have a statue. He deserves to have his number retired because of the fact that, in essence, who is the best Cav? I mean, it's going to be LeBron and then who? Kyrie, okay, number 2. And then who's your number 3? Austin Carr?
Zydrunas Ilgauskas. That's your number 3.
We could go there, but
Big Z.
I would suggest even Boobie Miles. I mean, we forget about him. Very important player.
Wow.
No, Boobie Gibson.
Yeah, Boobie Miles, Friday Night Lights fame. Terrible ACL accident he suffered while he was at Permian. Never forget that.
Can I just say I'll defend LeBron because he didn't have to come back the second time. I think that's what exonerates him from some irrational Cleveland Cavs fans like Tony argument against him. He didn't have to come back from the Heat, right? It wasn't a slam dunk situation. I mean, they had Kyrie, but Kyrie was still relatively unproven. Then they traded for Love right away and formed what became a quote-unquote super team. But he could have chosen plenty of other franchises to go to with better assets in play. And he chose to come back to Cleveland and win a championship with the Cavs. So I think that alone exonerates him from a lot of, do whatever you want, LeBron. I mean, I'm happy with the title.
I agree with you, Rick. Tony's just salty, bitter, and he's a sad man.
It's going to take time to heal, okay? It's going to take time.
It's okay. That's what tissues are for. You have a newborn child, get some love from him. Lincoln will support you always.
He's upset that LeBron's gone too. Let me just make that clear.
I'm sure he is. All right, continuing with the A block portion of this show, we're going to continue with NBA free agency. I feel like we've spent enough time talking about the Lakers and the Cavs. So let's look at the NBA in general here. So I got a couple bullet points here. First big weird signing, I think, was Boogie Cousins signing a 1-year, $5 million contract with the Warriors. Ricky, does that make any sense for you?
Makes perfect sense to me. If it's really a win-win for the Warriors, I think the Warriors are becoming like that rich friend that you have that keeps like winning lottery tickets and goes to the casino and wins like $500 when they really don't need it. I mean, it's like the rich get richer and the rest of the league has to suffer. So worst case scenario, they sign Boogie Cousins to a mid-level exception. Doesn't really affect their cap situation. I guess they could have used that on another player, but the Warriors really don't need to do that. And he doesn't come back. He's not the same player. He looks like Isaiah Thomas coming to the Cavs last year, and they're no worse for wear, right? They won the title against the most formidable opponent they've had in the Rockets. This offseason, the Rockets have lost Trevor Ariza. Clint Capella's unhappy with the franchise, so who knows what his headspace is going to look like. So theoretically, the Warriors are better off than they were a year ago without Boogie Cousins. Best case scenario, Boogie Cousins comes back and returns back to the 25, 12, and 6 guy that he was with the Pelicans last year, all NBA center. And now your starting 5 has 5 guys who have made an all NBA team, which I don't have the stats on this, but I'm sure that that's never happened in the history of the NBA. I am positive. So yeah, it's a great move for the Warriors. I think he fits in their system pretty well. I mean, they played Zaza, they played Andrew Bogut back when they had him, if you guys remember. So, the fact that DeMarcus doesn't necessarily play the greatest of switch defense, or the fact that he doesn't hustle back. I mean, they've had centers and worked with centers that can do this. The big thing that I think solves for them is, number one, when the Rockets, or they play a team like the Rockets that try to switch everything, they can put Boogie in, and now they can no longer just have Chris Paul switch on to him because he'll just eat Chris Paul on his way to a dunk. Or he can run with the second unit of Livingston and Iguodala and get you points and manufacture points when they don't have much scoring. So I think it's a slam dunk, and I think the Warriors were going to win the title next year regardless, but this just makes it where they'll maybe sweep through the entire playoffs. I don't know.
All right, Tony. So that's Boogie. So PG-13, or Paul George rather, re-signed with the Thunder. Did you expect him to do that?
I didn't, but it shows how, I guess, nobody wants to play with LeBron, I guess. I mean, we have spent the past year thinking that, it's a done deal. The Thunder wasted trading Victor Oladipo and Sabonis to Indiana for him just for a rental. And he's just going to sign with the Lakers, his hometown team, and everything's going to be happy. And then he re-ups with the Thunder. So that tells me possibly something's up with that. And it's also the same as I thought with DeMarcus Cousins is why didn't he go to LA? I think that it's a complete win for everybody that doesn't want to play for LeBron. That's what I see. Because, I mean, let's face it, I think it'd be a lot more fun to play Russell Westbrook. A lot less pressure.
You might be right. I think we all expected Paul George be playing for the Lakers the past 2 seasons. The fact that he was traded to the OKC Thunder was surprising, and the fact that he's not with the Lakers now, I think, is also surprising. So some other big signings. DeAndre Jordan signed a 1-year, $24 million contract with the Mavericks. If we remember, it was, 3 years ago, when he was locked in a room and was unable to sign with them. I think they called in Doc Rivers. I think J.J. Redick was a part of that. I heard him talk about that. It was a pretty odd experience, trying to keep him with the clip. Chris Paul signed a $160 million max with the Rockets. And another, Kawhi is still on the market. So I actually just read something on Twitter that to make the whole situation even more crazy is that while he was in New York rehabbing, his people actually hid him from the Spurs team officials so they couldn't even talk to him. Hid him in a different part of the building. Ricky, what are the chances that Kawhi is traded this season?
Pretty high. I mean, there's no reason not to trade him. I'll say 99% that he will be traded to somebody by the time of the season. I think I mentioned it the last podcast, and we all kind of agreed that their best time to do this is at the trade deadline to get maximum value. Don't do it right now because unless you get what you're asking for, but it sounds like what they're asking for is just outlandish. They want like Brandon Ingram, Kyle Kuzma, like 2 first-round picks and 2 second-round picks from the Lakers, which would just be a terrible trade. I think he'll get traded. I think this is a weird situation because we as the public know nothing about Kawhi Leonard. He's just like a super quiet superstar that just doesn't really ever talk. He's like James Harden with a less interesting facial feature. I mean, James Harden is like the same thing. Like no one knows anything about James Harden except for he does State Farm commercials and he has a massive beard. I mean, that's literally the only thing. And he dated, I guess, Khloe Kardashian for a second. But Kawhi Leonard is like, I don't know anything about this guy. I mean, people talk about Boogie Cousins being this like, oh, we can't have him in the locker room, and that's why no one wanted to sign him because he's damaged goods. I'm like, why don't people say that about Kawhi Leonard? Like, is it just because he's good enough that his talent oversees that? But like, if you do this to a franchise of what he's doing to the Spurs, and you don't speak ever in public, and you seem like you're just not a leader. I mean, why? I don't understand. I understand he's a great player, but man, I just don't think people talk enough about what a cancer he could be to the wrong locker room as well.
Yeah, this whole situation has definitely been crazy. Like, you look back on the Cavs season where Derrick Rose just vanished for like 2 weeks. Like, that was pretty wild. But, like, Kawhi vanished for like 6 months. Like, he wasn't at the games. Like, he was in a different city. Tony, do you think Kawhi gets traded before the trade deadline?
I think so as well. But I think every day he's not traded actually diminishes his value in terms of what the Spurs are going to get in return. I think the Spurs right now could get a huge haul for him as long as they do. But to make your point on the silent Kawhi, I guess. I mean, you think this guy, he played at San Diego State for his college ball, and he's played his entire career now in San Antonio, a small market team that doesn't get a lot of attention really unless they're, title contenders. Because I know there's some years they were in the playoffs that you just kind of forgot they even made the playoffs, but you knew they were there. And I think going to a big city, I don't think that fits the whole Kawhi personality. And I know I've read that before. Like, Kawhi is that quiet type. He isn't a leader. I mean, yeah, he has superstar features, but he would be best served in that Paul George where he doesn't have to have the spotlight on him. However, he could still use his superstar talents. I don't think going to LA, honestly, is a smart move for Kawhi now because he would be in that LeBron shadow. And Kawhi is a good basketball player to the point where, why damage him like the media has damaged Kevin Love for the past 4 years, for example. Kawhi, I think, would work out in Philadelphia. I think that would be all right, running, as becoming more of a leader in that system. But I would want to see Kawhi go to a small market team because I think that's who he is. I don't think he's a large market person.
Yeah, I mean, we don't know nothing about him. I mean, the only things I know about Kawhi Leonard is that he has massive hands. He still wears braids, which I think he might be the only player in the NBA that actually still wears braids. And I think Le Batard interviewed him a couple years ago And apparently Kawhi doesn't like to talk about like his childhood. I don't know if there was some rough situation there, but Levitard asked him one question, and Kawhi's like, I didn't agree to answer these, and just hung up the phone. Now, that's not the first time someone has hung up on Dan Levitard on air, but I mean, he doesn't want to talk about anything. Like, so, I mean, you're a professional athlete. Eventually going to be asked a question that you don't answer, but hey, that's it. So, I mean, it's been a relatively calm free agency period outside of those big signings. I mean, there's still some guys in the market like Clint Capella is still yet to be signed, Marcus Smart, Jabari Parker. But other than that, the guys that you expected to sign have been signed. Now, Tony, I'm going to give you just Isaiah Briscoe signed a deal with the Magic today. What do you have on Isaiah Briscoe? Give me 1 minute on him.
You want a minute on this? I don't even know who Isaiah Briscoe is.
That's exactly my point. No one cares who Isaiah Briscoe is. That's where we're at with NBA free agency. All right, so getting to our weekly sports rundown where we like to talk about other things that are going on in the world of sports. Really, it's been a pretty dry period, but the World Cup is going on. I'll start it by saying that Germany did not make it to the knockout stages by losing 2-0 to South Korea, one of the worst teams in the World Cup. It is disappointing for the Mannschaft, and I shed a couple tears, and they should be ashamed of themselves. All right, so World Cup is in the quarterfinals. So all we're going to do as an exercise is pick our team that we want to win. I will start. I'm going to pick Croatia for two reasons. They have this guy called Luka Modric on their team that kind of looks like Steve Nash. And they were like this checkerboard uniform, which I find cool. Those are the only reasons. I did watch their game, and they were okay. I don't know anything about them. Tony, who do you have going forward in the World Cup?
We'll go Belgium over England, 2-1.
Okay, so Belgium. Ricky.
I can't believe neither of you guys are picking Russia. I mean, they rigged a presidential election. I can't believe that you guys don't think they have the capability of rigging the World Cup as well. Sorry, but that they don't have the capability as well to rig the World Cup and win this for the homeland. So, I'm going Russia all the way. Deflated soccer balls, probably the other team having some sort of food poisoning or dehydration or whatever it is, and Russia's going to win.
I didn't think about that, but Putin is there. He's watching. I mean, people do at his whim, so we'll see what happens. So, with soccer on our minds, our man next to me, Tony, he's got something to say.
Tony's Tirade is brought to you by Shortcut Lawn Care. Save time, save money with Shortcut.
Tony, I'm going to give you 30 seconds on the clock. And if you go over, hey, that's fine. As long as you're tirading, we don't care how long you go. So here we go. Time is ticking.
You know why I haven't watched the World Cup? Because there's one thing missing. Team USA Soccer. And let me tell you, we're hosting the 2026 World Cup. We must get it together there. We must find winners. We must find winners now. Let's say we're tired of losing. Make soccer big. This is your one and final chance. Soccer, guess what? You have 8 years. You're on the clock. Find a way.
Boom. That's 25 seconds of hot, fiery takes spewing out of the mouths of Antonio Crier. I'm feeling a little warm over here. I might have to take off my shirt here. I don't know about you, Ricky, if that reached you all the way up in Chicago. I can tell you're sweating. It's dripping off your face. Yep. So that ends our Tony's Tirade section and our World Cup talk as it is. So next up, we have our pop culture reporting. So me and Rick, we're going to finally get to talk about the season finale of Westworld, right? It was an hour and a half, which is what we expected to be a longer show. So Ricky, I'll start with you. What were your thoughts and were your expectations met for the Westworld finale?
That's a very that's a complicated question. Okay, so my expectations were met in the fact that they wrapped up a lot of loose ends, which I was really excited about. And I'll try to talk fast because I know certain members of our team here don't necessarily like Westworld. Shout out to Frank Crier right there.
Speak to Frank.
If you're ever wondering where Tony got his good looks from, if you're on the YouTube video, that's exactly where Tony gets all of his charm from right there. So Yes, my expectations were met, and the fact they wrapped a lot of things up. I do love the show, so I don't want this to be misconstrued, but I had some major just holes I felt in the finale, which I want to be explained to me, and maybe, Matt, you can explain them better than what I could. So number one, the whole Valley Beyond, I guess I don't really, understand the physics behind that of, why the host couldn't have somehow been uploaded to this from the cradle, and that they needed to, physically pass through this fissure in the world to go into this program. It was just very, I guess, sloppily done. I also don't understand the scene when they're trying to get into the Valley Beyond and when Clementine's riding on the horse down, why people aren't shooting her off of this horse. They wait until she's literally right. I've seen these androids shoot and hit a target from a mile away, and they don't just shoot her off the horse before she gets there. They wait until she's right on top of them. I don't really think Maeve had to die either. I thought that was just let's show off her new power. But she probably could have just ran in with her daughter and been fine. So I don't really think that was necessary. I think the Dolores plot was weird as well. She wanted to destroy all the hosts, but they didn't get the Valley Beyond because it was artificial and it was just kind of a castle in the sky type thing. But then Bernard kills her, brings her back, and now she has a change of heart and she wants to upload them. So that part was really strange. I also thought it was strange of why they needed certain, I guess, to use these. I don't know where they sent them. They just send that transmission to the space? Did they send it to a satellite? Where did that go? They just show this kind of cheaply animated beam of light go into the sky, and it's oh, they'll never be found again. I don't even know what that means. So overall, I thought it wrapped up a lot of stuff, but it was just man, it was there's a lot of instances even for that show where it was kind of this is a little too far out there, too unbelievable. What do you think, Matt?
I mean, I'll put this out there right now. When I watch Westworld, and I think this is different when I watch different shows, my overall expectation of what I'm about to watch, I don't watch Westworld for deep meaning in my life. I don't look to it to find meaning in humanity. I just want to be viscerally entertained. So speaking on that, I mean, I love the show. I could watch it forever. I think some of the points you make are right. I think the Valley Beyond situation was that it was physically stored at the forge, and in order for it to be opened, Bernard had to physically open it. And it was just a matter of the host accepting to enter it through a digital domain. But I do understand why couldn't that just be in the cradle? But I don't know, is the fact that they chose to go there, which I thought was interesting. They all made their own conscious choice of, I want to go to this new place, this scary place. And I think when they go there, they physically die. Right? The host bodies die, and their code or their person now goes to wherever the server is located. I assume it could be on the moon, it could be on a satellite, someplace the humans will never find. I think what I really liked about the show was the forge itself was a library. How it was presented to us, where all of the human people that were there, their brains were converted into some sort of code. And if you notice, Dolores opens a book, and the code looks like it does on that player piano that plays the music. It's the same sort of thing, which I thought was really interesting. So they have this entire library of all these codes. I thought that was pretty cool, and how Dolores kind of reads through all of them. I don't know what she was looking for. That was what is she in here to find? She's I found what I looked for. What the hell were you looking for? We don't know. But I think the Charlotte Dolores thing was pretty cool. How here's a naked Charlotte, and she just shoots the real Charlotte in the head. That I didn't see coming for a million years. That was the big twist, where Dolores was really in Charlotte's body the whole time. Kind of makes sense how she dealt with Bernard, that she never really gave Bernard the third degree, during those future scenes, that she just, because she knew who she was and what she was doing. I thought that was pretty cool, especially when she finally revealed that she was Dolores and just like assassinated like 8 guys in like 4 seconds. Like that was pretty cool. Like all headshots. She was even looking at them. So like that was cool. Like I really like the characters. I mean, I like the show. It's super serious, which I think to a fault, like will turn people off because of how serious it is. I think there is levity. I think you just have to be able to find levity. Like sometimes the dialogue is like kind of dumb, but I kind of find that funny when they're being like over ponderous or trying to, like anytime Dolores speaks, like half the time I don't know what she's even talking about. But I mean, overall, I think I liked it. I think like a show like this, if I can compare it to Lost, like you're never entirely satisfied with what you see because it always presents more questions than it answers in a way. Because like that's the draw of these shows. Like with any sci-fi show, there's always more questions than answers. It like keeps you coming back. And the show is a mystery box. So like if it unveils everything to you, like, and if everything's extremely explained, like there's no reason to come back because like I said, it's kind of like you're not coming here to see God or anything. You're just coming here to be entertained. So I'd say overall, I enjoyed it. Another weird thing about this episode that there was like a post-credit scene with William, like walking into the forge and then meeting his, who he thought was dead daughter, Emily. Ricky, what do you think of that post-credit scene?
I thought it was interesting. My first thought, so I guess I wasn't quite sure because basically the regular show wraps up and you have Dolores and Bernard in the real world, which Dolores is like back. That's another. Okay, real quick to touch on it because I agree with your points of like I don't watch Westworld for it. Like I understand Westworld is like a sci-fi show, obviously, but I think the one thing I thought about Westworld this whole time was they did a very good job of making it to be like believable sci-fi, like versus like, you know, you watch some and you're like sci-fi shows and you're just like, that would never happen. Right. Versus Westworld, like, okay, I can see a point 100, 200 years from now where this stuff could like maybe actually be done. But I don't understand like how they just kind of glossed over like how Dolores got her old body back. Like, and they had this like old, like seemingly antiquated one machine that was like gonna digitally print like, you know, Dolores and all these other hosts that they wanted to make. Right. So that was like the final scene. So I had that, and then I saw the William and Emily scene, and then I started thinking, well, is this and I don't know like what famous television, is that like Dallas, or there was some famous television show where like the whole series is a dream or something like that, and like the final episode you like find out that it's just
was
like,
that St.
you know,
Elsewhere? Was that what that was?
Maybe
Yeah,
maybe that's what that was.
Yeah.
Okay. So at first I'm like, is this whole thing just been a computer simulation of them trying to like test fidelity in William and like none of this has ever happened? But then I was like, that doesn't really make sense with how Bernard and Dolores are in the real world now and how does that all fit in? So I was glad that the showrunners kind of came out and added some clarity to that point after the fact. But I was surprised. I wasn't really expecting to see that post-credit scene.
No, because there hadn't been one all season, and like you don't know to stick for it. I mean, if it's like, I don't know, I'm weird. If it's like a season finale of an episode, I like to watch all the credits and like it comes up. And like you said, the creator, Lisa Joy, came out and said that that scene takes place in the future, far beyond that of which season 3 will take place. So that's really weird. So I think in that we could say, well, in that scene, William is a host, but that still doesn't answer the question whether he's a host in the park or not of what we saw.
Right.
So
and I was expecting them to find an Infinity Stone in that scene, which I still haven't found it. I've looked for it. The other thing with William, though, and maybe, again, this is a show just trying to be a mystery box, and I don't like it when they force it to be a mystery box. But, like, why would you, like, stop digging in your arm? Like, he's there. Like, he's, like, ready to find out the truth. And then Dolores rides up, and he's just like, oh, hey, Dolores. And Dolores is like, oh, hey, what are you doing? And he's like, nothing. And then he just, like, stops looking, and it's just like, no, we're not going to tell you if he's a host or not. It's like, why, dude? You, like, dig one more inch. You were there. Like, just show us.
Just cut the arm off. All right, so real quick, let's wrap this up. We don't know what next season's going to be about. The TV show's already outpaced the books. Not that the book had really anything to do with the plot of season 1 or anything. Ricky, what are your expectations for next season? Let's just say, what do you want to see next season?
I want to see the show kind of expand beyond the park, show us how this is going to work in the real. I would like to know more about the Westworld universe. So like, what's this foreign land that they're on? Some people have even like hypothesized that they're not even on Earth, like they're on some other planet or on like what year is it? What's technology look like? What do people like? All we've seen is kind of flashbacks and little bits here and there, but I want them to expand on this Westworld universe, show us, are people just driving around like you and I do today? Is everything these like hover cars, like some sort of, futuristic sci-fi experience? I don't know. I would like for them to explore that a little bit more and give us some more context.
I would definitely agree with you. I think if I compare this to another show like The Handmaid's Tale, which I watch, one of my biggest gripes with that show is that I really want to know what's going on in the world besides female suffering, which you get 99% of the time on that show. I want to know, what is Gilead? So in season 3 of Westworld, I want to know, where are they at? I want to see these hosts among people. Why are people paying all this money to go to Westworld? So that's kind of what I'm looking forward to. So that wraps up our conversation about season 2 of Westworld. So with that, I'm going to give you my top 5 science fiction TV shows. All right. Number 5 will be The Expanse on Sci-Fi, based on the Expanse novels by James S.A. Corey. It's like Game of Thrones in space. Number 4, I would put Westworld by HBO. Really love the show. Great production value. Evan Rachel Wood, fantastic. Right. Number 3 is Fringe. Ran for 5 seasons on Fox, featuring Anna Torv, Josh Jackson, and great cast. Loved it. All right. Number 2, Black Mirror on Netflix, the anthology show, which picks a new topic every episode. Super deep show. A lot of ideas about technology. And then my number 1 science fiction show that I've watched, is in my mind, is Lost. I think Lost is peak sci-fi. It is the puzzle box. It is a show that you really never know what's going on. There's always something right around the corner, something that keeps you coming back every single episode. Tony, any thoughts on that top 5?
I'll be honest. Besides maybe a scattering of episodes of Lost, I have not watched a single one of those TV shows. However, I would probably agree with number 1 being Lost, I guess, because it was probably one of the top suspense shows of all time.
All right, Rick, what do you got to say about that list? Or do you have anything to add?
The only one I would add, and you probably didn't include this because it did not have a very long run, but is Firefly, which I really enjoy. But to be honest with you, I'm also with Tony, as I've only really ever watched Westworld and Black Mirror off this list. So
there are a lot of great shows. Some that I haven't watched, like I've always wanted to watch Battlestar Galactica. Haven't gotten to that yet. But hey, if you're looking for something to watch, check them out. All right, so moving on from Westworld and science fiction, I'm going to quick review. I watched Sicario: Day of the Soldado this past week. It is the sequel to the 2014 film Sicario. So that's where we're at. So I went and watched it. It's directed by Stefano Sollima, who directed episodes of Gomorrah on Amazon. Written by Taylor Sheridan, the same guy that wrote Sicario. And if you've seen Sicario, it deals a lot with cartels and shady government organizations. So basically, it's a great clone of Sicario, one of my favorite movies ever. My one-sentence review of the film is, it's Sicario without Emily Blunt's moral compass character with more death. I give it 4 bloody headshots out of 5. All right, next, me and Tony are going to preview Ant-Man and the Wasp. It's pulling 86% on Rotten Tomatoes. Tony, quickly, what are you looking forward to in this film?
Just the fact that it's Ant-Man. Ant-Man is probably my second, maybe third favorite hero in the MCU. I just enjoy watching Paul Rudd in general anyway. I think it should be last, as well as, making it so that feeling after Infinity War isn't as bad, I guess, because all I hear is how it's going to be cleaner, I guess, and just kind of refreshing.
All right, that wraps up our pop culture report. Now it's time for our 3GA recommendations. Tony, what do you recommend for our watchers and listeners going forward?
Gordon Ramsay's 24 Hours to Hell and Back. If you loved Kitchen Nightmares, you'll love this.
All right, my recommendation is The Wire. It is the greatest show in the history of television. Don't at me. It just is. It's got the greatest cast of any TV show ever. Sopranos fans, don't at me. Right? I've watched
Wendell Pierce, what up?
The Bunk. Right? I've just watched it for the third time. Even got through the 5th season. Watch The Wire. It's the best. Ricky, what do you have for our fans?
Nothing. There's nothing written on my notes that you gave me for my recommendation.
Okay.
So I have nothing.
You didn't even read a book, do anything interesting. I mean, come on, man.
All right. So that's
Pathetic.
that is
Absolutely
the podcast. That is the show. Hopefully you've enjoyed it. I am your host, Matt. That's Tony in the upper box. And Ricky, I mean, leave the fans with something. You have anything? He's got nothing. I mean, we tried. All right, next week, I think we'll probably talk about some NBA free agency, maybe a wrap-up, maybe talk about the Summer League, some NFL preseason hype, maybe talk college football. Hey, and maybe we might review something. We never know. Hey, watchers and listeners, be sure to hit us up on Facebook page and our other various media platforms, Stitcher, SoundCloud, Twitter, our Facebook page, the YouTube page, iTunes, the Google Play Store. Leave a comment, like us, subscribe, whatever you got to do. And, hey, be sure to leave comments. Tell us, what do you want us to talk about? Hey, and if you don't like us, tell us that too. We can always use that good constructive criticism. So this has been a 3GA podcast. You guys have a good week.
3 Guys Analyze is sponsored by KMC Artistry. Check the description to schedule your hair appointment today. 3 Guys Analyze is also sponsored by Shortcut Lawn Care. Save time, save money with Shortcut. Read the description to set up your free estimate today.